And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Two Backset Podcast, a college football show where our two hosts focus on their favorite teams and the wider landscape of college football. I'm one of your hosts, Thomas, a.k.a. Mr. Warburg. Joining me, as always, is Patrick, a.k.a. Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, football fans. How are we this week?
Hopefully good. How about yourself, Fusion?
Pretty good. Baseball wise, we got to see the South Oklahoma Rangers win the World Series, which I don't really give a shit about. But outside of that, man, some interesting football last week. The landscape of football is getting very, very interesting as we get closer and closer towards the end of the season, man. We're getting close to rivalry week here very soon.
Indeed, and we're getting close to the early recruiting signing period. College football playoffs around the corner. There's some future off-season decisions for major programs that are being spurned on because of in-season personnel changes. It should be a really fun end to the season because we're at the point where those developmental programs, they're going to bite up and get somebody a lot in November. Talking like Iowa State, like we did a lot last week. Got some ranked games at home in November, and they're looking much better. There's a lot going on this week. We'll get to our pick'em games. We're going to talk some off the field news at my program for that I like watching is the Iowa Hawkeyes. Some big news and some big things to consider for the future of the program. Plus, the weirdness continues with Connor Stallions, man. It just until we get the manifesto, which someone needs to leak. Someone needs to leak that manifesto. And Reddit would fucking explode.
60 pages.
It's like 5,000 words or something, right?
Yeah,
it was like
ridiculous.
Just release it. If you NCAA, if you have it, it needs to be in a report. The whole thing needs to be listed as a PDF because people would lose their shit over this. Can't stress enough. That's the most interesting part of this conversation.
Do we want to open up with this whole thing? Because I do have a little point on that. I mean,
we might as well. It's the biggest story of the day, and because I'm probably going to use it as the cover image of him peeking around with the blue light, I'm definitely going to be using that as the cover image for the show. But so news broke. I believe it was yesterday.
Yep.
Early yesterday about all of a sudden these sideline footage from Central Michigan's game at Michigan State from week 1 started appearing back online, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, that guy looks like Connor Stallions. Peeking around a coach's head. Oh, and what's that? There's a blue light on his sunglasses on a 7 o'clock kickoff at night. That's weird. And again, it's Michigan. It's the Midwest. Sun is out at 7 o'clock. That's not big a deal. But he kept him on the whole night. The sun don't stay up that long in the Midwest. All right? The sunglasses at night thing was weird enough by itself. But there's this blue light in the corner. And hey, you know what? What sunglass brand can record, Fusion? Do you know?
Yeah, I know this because I almost bought a pair, and that's Ray-Ban.
Yeah, they partnered with Meta for a recording and cloud uploading recording smart glasses.
Yep.
Funny how a guy who looks identical to Connor Stallions is on Central Michigan sideline while they're playing a future Michigan opponent.
I want to clarify something. I wasn't going to buy these glasses with the intention of snooping on other teams in their sidelines.
So yeah, you weren't going up to watch a Sooners game.
No, that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't even going to go to Okie Light over, Oklahoma State or U of H. I wasn't going to be on a sideline and spend money on their gear and somehow procure a pass to be on the sideline to record that. Now, it was actually going to be for like parks and stuff with our dogs, and I was going to do this.
Also, normal human things.
Yeah, normal human things, but I mean, the deviousness behind Stallions is just. It's getting crazier and crazier. Like you said, we've got to see this fucking manifesto, man. Like, we've got to see this thing because if there's any connection at all to Harbaugh, and what I mean by that is there's layers to this that he has to be connected with in some way. Because look, if Stallions is buying hundreds of dollars worth of glasses, hundreds of dollars worth of gear, he ain't buying it out of his own out of his own cash till. He's not gonna do that.
Yeah, especially since he's been doing this. Photos now emerged of him on the sideline since 2018.
Yep.
I know he's not hurting for that much money because he's a retired captain. Like, the pension's not bad, right? Sure. Plus whatever job he had at the time, I can't remember. I think in 2018, wasn't he still active duty?
I don't know if he was.
Or was he a reservist at the time?
I think he was a reservist at the time.
Yeah. So obviously he's not hurting for that much cash, but it's like that you could do that maybe once or twice a season. not every opponent's game. That's fucking bonkers. Like
to pay for the
that's
travel, to
so
pay for what
that
it.
quickly adds
Yeah.
up so much. It's
Yep.
like, okay, where was that money coming from?
Well, and I think it opens up the big question is where's that money coming from? Who is authorizing it at Michigan to cover any of these costs and what they know? Like what, because whether it be hundreds of dollars, whether it be 10, $50, whether it be thousands of dollars, whatever it is, I can see this guy trying to get it like for him to write this manifesto of how he's going to eventually become the Michigan head
Yeah, and I
coach.
just want them. I want to be
Supposedly,
clear. I want the manifesto not for the investigative part. I want it for the memes.
yeah,
I want it for the
I
Reddit
agree.
memes. Reddit,
Like, yeah,
the college football subreddit would melt down if it got leaked.
but
Yeah,
like this guy obviously is a bit out of his mind. Okay, it takes someone with that level of insanity to have the kind of the brass,
to
the
do
balls
this.
to do this for years on end, to be on sidelines, knowing there are cameras everywhere and not give a shit, but also have the mindset of I'm doing this to eventually be like make my way into the head coaching ranks at Michigan. I gotta read it, man. I do, but I need to know where the like from a cash standpoint, who's connected and how so at Michigan because I really think that the NCAA is digging into this night and day because my gut feeling has changed from a couple weeks ago and even last week when we talked about repercussions happening next season or at the end of the season. I think the NCAA is going to push if they can connect Jim Harbaugh or someone important at Michigan, whether it be the AD or an assistant coach or someone that has the financial means to connect the Stallions to Michigan and to what he's doing. I have a feeling they're going to do their best to get Michigan out of the playoff. That's my feeling, man, because it happened during this season during big like it's been a light schedule, but during critical games where they could be creating an advantage, there's so many layers. I just like as I think through this, it's like, oh holy crap, I want to point here, want to point here, but I don't want to go on too many tangents. But other than I really think the NCAA is pushing hard to get information to connect this to Harbaugh or someone else of importance. When we both know it's usually in college football, it's the head coach, right?
Yeah, that's where
Less
the lack of institutional control will hit them.
yep, because we knew that with Art Briles. Joe Paterno tried to play dumb, but we all knew that he knew what was going on because Sandusky was his right hand man for so long, or they were close friends for so long to not know anything. Uh, this is going to be very interesting how it connects to the higher ups at Michigan football. It really will because man, this just looks bad. This looks really bad. That here's the other thing, and the CMU head coach brought this up this week. They're investigating this because, like you said, he was there week one against Michigan State. How the hell did he get a credential to be on the sideline? And then the next question is, where is he getting those credentials from? Are they legitimate credentials? Is he just creating fake credentials? Like, what's
Given
happening
the
to
staff
allow him
level
to get that
turnover,
stuff?
getting a credential in and of itself is not that weird, right? Because I'm
Okay,
sure between Michigan and Central Michigan, there's been a lot of, not shared staff in season, but like guys have worked here, they've worked there, they know people here, they've been in the industry for 15 years, and it's and what are they, FCS, CMU? They're FCS, right?
I think so. Yep.
Yeah, they're not Mac.
No, they're not
No,
Mac.
they're not Mac. But like they're a major university within the state. There's tons of connections there, right? I'm sure he had friends that probably went to CMU. Getting a credential's not that weird. It's the recording thing that's like,
Well, it's the getting the credential,
yeah.
wearing their gear, like getting their
Yeah,
outfitting for
that
their
takes it
gear.
even like weirder.
It's a weirder thing, and then standing so close to the head coaches, like the head coach and the coordinators on the sideline to where you could visibly see him in those shots. So now I'm sure other teams are now going through over the last few years of their tape to see if he's been on their sidelines, right? And we're probably gonna, I won't be shocked if we hear a few more of these come up over the next couple days. It's crazy, man. This is just insane to me.
Yeah, it won't die because it just
Yeah.
drip, drip, drip. It keeps coming out and keeps
Yep.
getting more damning. And one more piece for this for me because it's new today. The Big Ten is feeling the heat internally from other coaches. The other 12
Right.
are, well, 13 are hot about
Right.
this. To use, I believe it was, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the article pulled up, but I believe one coach via a source said every win since, you know, brackets Stallions has been on staff, every win is tainted by Michigan. That's a stark way to put it from a coach in the Big Ten. Like, apparently Harbaugh was on the call and then had to leave just to talk about this. And it was like a 90-minute call where they just blew up at Tony Petitti. I think that's how you say his last name.
I don't know.
But he's their commissioner.
Yeah.
And man, talking about Big Ten commissioners just getting Kevin Warren had COVID. This Petitti's got this scandal. Like, trial by fire, man. I wouldn't want this job like at all. But coaches are clearly demanding action this season. They don't want Michigan to be champion. They don't think it'd be legitimate to have them as a champion. And I haven't seen any stories come out about the AD call because that was scheduled for later in the day. I think AD and presidents were going to be on the call at the same time. And there's going to be so much pressure from ADs and coaches to the college presidents, who are the power brokers of the Big Ten Conference. It's not the athletic directors, it's the presidents, right, of the universities that make up membership in the conference. Like, that's who could call no confidence on a commissioner, as far as I'm reading the bylaws, right? And from what I remember of just stories that have come out over the years. If enough presidents flip on this, they've got it in the bylaws, I think, that Michigan, just because, like, hey, we are confident that they cheated, we have X evidence for it, they could just say you don't get to play in the postseason as a conference. You don't get to play in the championship game. Then that's not going to 100% preclude them from CFP if they win out. And the CFP is an independent body, and I wouldn't blame them at all for not. If the CFP puts Michigan in, that's not their call. Like, they have to go with who's available and who they pick from.
Sure.
They have to. Obviously, they could make a statement. They could say, hey, we're going to seed them number 4 just because. But that wouldn't shock me at all. It really wouldn't bother me. And the NCAA, to play devil's advocate, they don't want to rush it either. As you said, there's a lot of pieces to this financially. Like, those investigative elements take time. Like, you can only go so fast. Because if you go too fast, you run the risk of either under-punishing or over-punishing and then getting sued.
Well, I mean, like I said, they have to find out regarding the credential, like, at Central Michigan. Where was it a legitimate credential?
There's another web that's like, how did that happen?
And then there's the legal, in terms of like the money implications that could be very, very dangerous for those people at Michigan involved with Stallions, paying him, knowing what he was doing. Like, you have to ask a lot of these questions, because if he's traveling to these other schools during Saturday games, then he's obviously not regularly on the Michigan sideline, right?
No, he was using proxies.
Okay.
Other than this one. But Michigan wasn't, I don't think they played that day because it was a Friday game in the state of Michigan.
That's fair. That's fair.
It was Friday at Michigan State, so not that far to get to for the next day.
But then the proxies become another financial
exactly. There's more webs
loophole. Like there's so many different legal layers we have to think about this that the government could be involved in. Like,
well, I don't think the government can. There's nothing illegal that happened, like, legally speaking.
Well, you say that, but if they're miscategorizing the finances for these,
that's true with the state funds technically, but Michigan's AD they're self-funded.
Okay.
That's a taxpayer institution in name only. All that money, it's all donor money, it's all endowment money, it's all ticket revenue money, it's all TV revenue money. None of that's coming from the state. But their BOR, their Board of Regents, their state auditor might get involved to be like, hey, like, what's going on here? Like, making sure nothing was breached. But my guess would be, if they weren't the dumbest people of all time, nothing actually came from state funds.
No, and what we're probably going to find out is, more than likely, they have boosters paying for this out of their own personal pocket.
Yeah, that are going out of a fund that they just donate to.
And which I could see that kind of absolves Michigan. But if Harbaugh is cutting any type of checks to people to fund this whole thing, that's where it becomes like, that would be the end. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. It's obvious. We called it 2 strikes with the recruiting stuff earlier in the year. I think the NCAA has it out to get him out of college football, and he's already not blackballed from the NFL, but he's burned enough bridges.
Because they put out a statement to say, like, hey, we're not a safe harbor for people that break rules.
That's pretty telling for the NFL, for Goodell to have the NFL release a statement like that saying like, hey, like because the
Tressel got
first thing that
suspended.
Tressel got suspended, but I mean like Urban Meyer, he was he left Ohio he left immediately Ohio State to go to the NFL, right? That was his first thing. The first thing he did. Pete Carroll did that. He left USC and went straight to Seattle. So I think that's the NFL. I think that's Goodell. Like, yeah, we don't want this PR nightmare. We do not want this PR nightmare. So we're going to release a statement. Plus, he's a bit of a prick, and people don't like him in the NFL. He's burned bridges there. So I'm sure, like the NFL's players, the Player Association probably worked with the front offices and was like, you know what? If y'all want to release a statement saying we don't want Harbaugh back, we're perfectly fine with that. And that's what they did. But that's a very telling thing because that's basically saying like, good luck to you, but you're not coming back here. Like we're if you want to try to file a lawsuit and say we're colluding to not let you interview for coaching jobs, we don't really give a shit, at this point. Like, we're making
Well,
a statement.
they have the moral ground to say we have reason to believe you would not be a upstanding coach in the NFL.
Right. I mean, oh man, but he could be done.
Oh,
Thomas,
he could always go to the CFL.
Or the new XFL, USFL.
Oh, imagine the XFL would be like, hey, Harbaugh, how much to get you in our league? Because that's a name. People would show up.
Well, he and Bob Stoops can face each other. I'm sure that would be their marquee coaching.
Speaking of Bob Stoops, we should get to our next story.
Let's do it.
So we got two other stories to talk about. One will dovetail into our weekly pick'em because the team involved in one of the discussions is involved in that pick'em. But for me, as I said last week, maybe you listened to the show because we actually did pretty decent viewership-wise in terms of our general average. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe, help the algorithm, do all the things. Our socials are on the video format, so follow us there. YouTube still won't let me put links in the description because it's a new account and YouTube sucks. But I said I wasn't going to wear an Iowa hat until they won another game. Well, I'm going to count firing Brian Ferentz as a win. Beth Gates basically said, hey, know what? Football is on its own fiefdom. Kirk Ferentz is not king of the castle. He reports to me. She put her foot down on this nepotism workaround, stupid clause that Gary Barter pulled, with, Brian's contract years ago when he was hired by Kirk because Iowa's nepotism laws, and technically as Iowa is a taxpayer-funded institution, they need to abide by those nepotism rules. If it was a private business, nobody would care, but it's the University of Iowa. So he had to report to the AD. That was the structure from when he was hired on as OL running backs coach years ago. I want to say that was it 14? He was OC in 17. He had been the offensive line coach and running game coordinator and tight ends coach for a few years and been very successful. But when he got that job, he had to go through the AD. That was his direct report, not the head coach. Getz is like, nope, that's not happening. Statistically, he would have to go like on a world-beating streak to get his 25 per game mark.
Yep.
And it's just not going to happen. And Kirk's going to, boo-hoo about the injuries and all that, and that's a part of it. But there was no way they were going to go off for like 40 points for the next 4 games to get to that benchmark. So she said, Brian, bye week, and the rumor is they were trying to get it done before. They were trying to get it in the week 1 of the bye week, but maybe they were waiting on Brian to say he was going to resign. There's going to be a whole chapter in the Kirk Ferentz, biography about this saga. And I'm very curious to see what that turns out to be in terms of interviews and stuff. But Monday she comes out and says Brian is not coming back to the program. And Kirk was clearly not happy. You saw the press conference the other day.
Yep.
He was terse. He stumbled over some things. And he, tried to, I think, smooth things over. But he was still clearly not okay because he's been we don't make changes mid-season. We evaluate in the offseason. That's the only time I will make a change. And he said that for years about other coordinators or position coaches not really doing all that well. And I don't think I think partly it's his son, and partly he didn't like having an AD tell him, it's my show, not yours, Kirk, because you report to the athletics director, not the other way around. And with Barta, it was the other way around. He was Gary Barta's boss, and everybody knew it. Everybody in that building knew it. But that's not the case anymore. Iowa has an actual athletics director, which is actually probably good for Kirk, because early in his run is when he had his best success. Gary Barta wasn't around, right? He had an actual athletics director and was part of that environment in a more positive way, I think. So now he's going to have to hire a new coach because he has said via a statement, as you saw, and it was more radio show comments,
Yeah.
and that they've worked into a statement format, but it was very clear. Oh, he just sounded like old Kirk again. Like it sounded like he was over it. Like he understood it. He had internalized it, and he probably shouldn't have held the presser on Tuesday like normal. With the statement being Monday afternoon, he probably should have pushed the press conference to just mellow out without adding more fuel to the fire of am I going to retire or not. And he says he wants to continue for a few more years, more likely towards the tail end of his contract, which runs through 2030. I believe there's about $42 million on the buyout. So about $6 or $7 million a year, depending on incentives, which doesn't shock me at all. He's coming back. But I'm wondering who he's going to hire next. Everyone was wondering, who if he quits, who do we hire? And you brought up Stoops, and I was like, well, if you could get him. If Stoops would be willing to come back anywhere, it's if Venables is hospitalized and he needs to go to OU, or something happens to Kirk and he needs to go to Iowa. That's it. That's the two places he would come back to college football in a short-term basis, I think. Because I think at that point, didn't he reach the point where he was older than his dad when his dad died? And that's when he was like, I'm done with like the high-stress coaching jobs.
Yeah. But then when Riley left for
the bowl game, and
the bowl game, he just
bowl game's a bowl game.
Yeah.
But like for even a season or two, I don't think he'd come back anywhere. But I mean, if you could talk him into it, you talk about turning the ship around. Hey, who's going to follow your all-time wins leader? Maybe the greatest coach in Iowa history. Oh yeah, we're going to get Bob Stoops. That would be an absolute coup by Beth Gates, and never going to happen. People were talking LeVar Woods. Would Mike Stoops come back? Because he also played at Iowa. The whole Stoops family did. At least the brothers did. Some of them have sons, and I know Bob's went to OU, but I can't remember who all went where. But it's going to be an interesting one, but less interesting now because Kirk said he's coming back, which means he's probably not going to make a splashy hire. I'm leaning Tim Polasek. He was the offensive line coach a few years ago, and he's been at North Dakota State? Was he their OC or head coach when they had that big run with Wentz? He was around the program.
Okay.
I can't remember. Let me look up his Wikipedia.
Okay.
Because he's been at Iowa before. He's only been here short term.
And you don't think LeVar Woods would be the guy?
It was Wyoming.
Wyoming? Okay.
He's at Wyoming right now. He was the offensive line coach at Iowa for 4 years, 2017 to 20. And he was at North Dakota State as the offensive coordinator for 3 years from 2014 to 2016. I had the connection in my head.
Carson Wentz, yeah.
Yeah, he was that offensive coordinator when they were legitimately, they could show up to any FBS team and maybe beat them. Like, they were a great team.
So you don't think LeVar Woods is in play at all to be promoted?
Well, it really wouldn't be a promotion, though, would it? He's already a coordinator.
Yeah, but, OCs are...
Kirk was never an OC.
More.
Dude, he's getting... Do you know how much money LeVar Woods is getting paid?
How much is he getting paid?
LeVar Woods' salary. $700,000 as a special teams coordinator.
Okay.
That ain't chump change.
That's not chump change. It's not...
Brian's was $850, so he's not getting paid that much more than LeVar. No, LeVar's probably going to get... If we're going to keep LeVar, he needs a raise. If you're going to keep him.
To be fair, over the last 2 seasons, who scored more? Who has scored more touchdowns? The Iowa offense or the special teams at this point? You have to ask yourself.
That's a tough question. I mean statistically, it is the offense, but it ain't by much.
I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding at the same time because Iowa has been anemic when it has come to scoring touchdowns offensively. So, I mean, honestly, man, I think I agree with you in that his hire is probably going to be a little more of a conservative approach, which is frustrating for you guys. But anything is better.
Yeah.
Are you
able to call a game with a plan and adjust? Brian couldn't do either. Brian is a smart football coach who should have topped out as a position coach.
All right.
He's probably going to go somewhere else and be very successful as an offensive line coach and tight ends coach. And maybe he eventually works his way back to Iowa at some point. Because he went to school here, he played here, and his dad's the all-time guy here. Wouldn't shock me at all. He comes back after his dad retires. I'm talking years down the road.
thinking just the bad blood is going to be
It's just
hard
too
to get
toxic
back.
now,
Right.
but who knows?
Yeah.
Because it's not like he's
Anything's
leaving
possible.
in like criminal disgrace. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Fair.
that kind of thing. So my money's on Tim Polasek right now because going from Wyoming to Iowa would be a nice bump. He's been a coordinator before, worked in pro style systems. All he needs to do is be Ken O'Keefe, which is Iowa's greatest offensive coordinator under Kirk Ferentz. You need to be efficient. Defense gives you short fields. You need to put it in the end zone. That's literally it. And Iowa used to do that. You know, like that was how they scored 55 on Ohio State back in 2017.
Right.
Was because, hey, they got a bunch of short fields and Nate Stanley threw touchdowns.
Why? Well, I think my question to you is why make the announcement this week when you have what 4 or 5?
As I said at
4
the
weeks.
start of the thing, early recruiting period is coming up, December.
That was my point. Was obviously they realize they have to get a heads up on recruiting.
And the
They
transfer
have to.
portal's open all the time.
Well, shit, man. If things go down bad at Michigan, we may have a slew of top Michigan talent that can hit the portal in
Yeah,
a couple of weeks.
and free transfer because their coach could get fired.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's like, if yeah, I mean they can't play in a bowl game for any other team. I mean they're done.
Yeah,
At the
they're done
until
for the season. They can't go team to
But
team, but
they can make spring ball with anyone. You know,
yeah,
if Harbaugh is fired over the next couple weeks. So which it could happen. Like I was being a little facetious a couple weeks ago, but the more I see what the NCAA is doing, it could happen to where, I mean, hell, Iowa's a good
if
stopping
NCAA
point for
gives him a
Michigan.
show cause,
Yep.
I mean, there's Michigan doesn't have Michigan doesn't have a choice.
I mean, obviously, like Colorado's going to go after some of those kids. A lot of the, maybe UCLA, USC is going to offer some stuff, but Iowa has to get on top. I'm sure this, and if she has the foresight to see this, like get ahead of recruiting. If this shit with Michigan does get really bad, there are some kids that we could
And Michigan
potentially have
State
transfer.
too.
And Michigan State's got some. They don't have a deep roster, but they've got some good players
There
over
are
there.
there are teams and guys who will
Yep.
be leaving, and it's good to
So
know. Hey, status quo isn't going to be the case.
and you're coming to a legacy with Kurt, right? I mean, it's like
Yes, yeah.
it's not
Stay all the jokes about the offense. Dude's going to get win number 200 next season at
right.
Iowa.
So it's possible. So this does feel like, and that's what I felt when this came down earlier this week was like, okay, this felt very strategic in that we've got to get ahead of recruiting and transfer portal. We've got to improve where we need to improve on the roster, and to do that, we can't just sit here with saying, oh, Brian's our guy next year.
And
Going through the season.
you no more fire Brian Chance in the stadium. That was
Yeah.
such a bad look.
Well, you've got to. I mean, you have a couple more weeks of it. You're gonna have to deal.
They
with
know it. Fans know he's gone. Like
Okay,
it's public. Like fans know. I think this is going to massively reduce the toxicity.
Okay.
Because the next game's away. It's at a neutral site, Wrigley Field
Right.
against Northwestern, and then you're home for a couple more weeks before you go to Nebraska. I think this reduces the home and neutral site toxicity among your fans because they know it's Brian's last rodeo. And to the
Yeah.
point about not getting rid of him now in terms of kicking him off the team, are you going to saddle a newbie offensive coordinator? Because nobody on the staff right now has ever called plays beyond Brian. Are you going to give them, hey, you're on tight end 2 and 3, quarterback number 2, possibly number 3. Your running backs are in and out of the lineup. Your offensive line is not as good. Hey, go put on some tape as a play caller with this talent pool.
Yeah.
Good luck.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know, like I wouldn't want to put that on any of our younger coaches who are on staff that are probably going to go be coordinators and head coaches somewhere else.
Right.
Like that's a bad look. Even if it's just, hey, here's an audition for next year. Because I don't think any of them realistically expect to get a coordinator position at Iowa. I think Kirk's going to be under the gun to not pick a first timer because Brian was a first time play caller.
Sure.
I think he's going to have to go to somebody like a Tim Polasek who has been a coordinator before. So that's where I'm leaning.
Okay.
That was really all I had on the conversation, other than it's of news because we cover our favorite teams. So
Sure.
speaking of, I covered Iowa. Let's kick to the Big 12 because we got some Big 12 games in our pick'em. I want to talk about what makes college football so good is Oklahoma loses on the road to Kansas, which is
Yep.
under, massive upset, which happens in the NFL too, but this is why I like college football more. Excuse me, I gotta blow my nose. Oh my goodness. Ugh. I got a early,
All right.
late fall cold.
Oh,
Anyway, so what I like about college football more than the NFL is stuff like this. So OU loses, fourth down, last gasp, goes incomplete. It's not that they lose in a massive upset because that happens in every other sport. What doesn't happen in every other sport is their main rival will stop the game. They are actively playing to put up that final play on their jumbotron.
here's the best thing about that: the radio play-by-play legend guy, Craig Way, the Longhorn broadcaster, stops calling the game on the radio and calls the end of that game.
Yeah, like that
So
level of just petty enjoyment at your rival's failure to such a crazy degree is why I love college football. That's why no matter what the TV networks do to this game, you don't beat that. That's awesome. I love it.
So I really wanted OU to run the table just because when they face Texas at the end of the season of the Big 12 title game, the winner is going to make the playoff. That but at the same time, this has created madness in the Big 12, which has been fun to watch because this is going to be a very pivotal week in the Big 12.
A lot of heavy profile games.
Yep. So yeah, it was awesome too because I was watching the game, but I was also listening to the radio feed um, in the background while I was playing games, and I just heard Craig Way go, "Okay, this." Well, he just stops. He just stops and goes, "Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the Kansas OU game," and he just calls it. He just calls the final play, which was hilarious to me. Like you said, but I also saw the video of the stadium.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
played
because
it at
I
DKR and the fans just
yep,
ate it
I
up.
had a friend that was at the stadium, and he's like, "Oh my god, dude! Like they have it on the Godzillatron because that's what they call the screen, that giant screen at DKR is the Godzillatron." He's like, "Oh my god, they have the game with the Godzillatron, and no one's paying attention on the field anymore."
Just absolute sheer pettiness, and I'm here for it.
Yep,
I
yep,
love it.
yep, yep,
So speaking of Texas, they're our first pick'em game. They've got Kansas State coming to town. Number 25
yep.
Kansas State going to number 7 Texas. 11 a.m. kick on Fox. So Fusion, let's talk Texas right now, where you guys are at in the season, and then we'll get into this game specifically. So I talked a bunch about Iowa, though not really on the field. Iowa, I talked off the field. What's up with Texas right now? How they looking? How they doing?
Uh, the defense had a really solid performance against BYU. Unfortunately, a lot of those guys are deemed up. You would think that U of H game was a big problem, and it was at how close they let things linger for so long with the Cougars, but they could turn around, and I believe, in my opinion, BYU is a better team than U of H, and the defense was just firing on all cylinders. The run game was phenomenal. The big question mark is still going to be the backup quarterback, Malik Murphy. Um, he can throw, and you probably saw this, and I mentioned this like in some of our Discord channels. The guy has a cannon of an arm, but he has no touch. So those short passes are a problem. But he has no problem flinging the deep ball. And you know what, man? If it works, keep going to it because he was finding A.D. Mitchell, he was finding Xavier Worthy open. I say like if he can't throw those short routes, just let him throw the deep ball and let the speedsters go after it because that's really going to be a big deal for against Kansas State because Kansas State's they're not having a great season, but at the same time they're that sleeper team to where it's like, hey, they can go in and they can knock people around.
Well, I
I
wouldn't say they're
really
having a bad season. They're 6-2 and 4-1 in conference.
yeah, but they did lose to Oklahoma State,
Oklahoma
and that
State is looking much better.
which that game, that OU Okie State game, could be very interesting as well because it is a rival.
Yeah,
It's an
I mean that's
in-state
why we have
matchup,
3 Big 12 games on the slate
right?
this week.
I really like how the Longhorns have rebounded the last couple weeks. My question is health on the defensive side of the football. Major concern there. And Malik Murphy, they've got like hopefully he's learned a few things, playing the entire game last week. My only concern is with that is that Sark has basically said he had no intention of putting Arch Manning in that game last week, and he really doesn't see a need to put him in now. Man, at some point you're going to run out of that luck, and you're going to have to figure out if 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 Quinn Ewers isn't coming back for at least 2 or 3 more weeks, you're going to have to find out who your guy is going to be, and if Malik Murphy can't take the next step and actually run the offense effectively for an extended period of time, guys. I don't mean like one drive throwing, two deep passes and that's 170 yards. Great, he's had a great game. No, a lot of his short balls were off target, too hard, like hard throws. Like I think he's got to put a little touch on his pass and settle in a little bit, especially on the short game. That's a really big thing for me. He's got to show improvement in that this week, and I think this is a good test for them because Kansas State, their defense is going to challenge the offense, and obviously they're going to key in on the running game. So you're going to either have to throw the ball deep or you're going to have to create offense. This game is up to the Texas receivers. That's really where it's going to be ride or die this week. Is like if they can get open and catch those balls, that's going to be really big. I mean, because Kansas State's going to put 7, 8 in the box. They really are from beginning to the end of the game, and really dare them to throw the ball. So, but I still pick the Longhorns to win in this game.
Fair enough. I do as well. I think they hold serve at home, but
Yep.
like I said, those developmental programs in November, this is when they start turning that corner, and
Right.
Kansas State's in that mold.
Would you say Kansas State is better than Iowa State right now in terms of
in terms of talent? Yes.
Okay.
I don't know where they're at in terms of because it's really hard to say because Iowa State was very young and still is, but now their young guys are getting reps. So and they look different, way different than they did 2 months ago. So this is just a really fascinating week in the Big 12 because I mean if a couple of these home teams can hold serve, their coaches are in the driver's seat for Coach of the Year in the Big 12.
Right.
Like the turnarounds we've seen in some of these programs are awesome. Like they're just really cool stories, and they're all in the same league, which is really fun to watch.
I mean, like I said, I know Kansas State lost to Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma State, Kansas, Iowa State, they're all in the mix here.
Yeah, all 4-1. And the only one that's not 4-1, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the only one that's playing this week in a game that's not, in terms of our pick'em games, is Kansas. And even then, if they win, they're still in the mix because they drop down another team and have a tiebreaker over somebody.
Right.
Right. Like it's going to be a fight to the finish in the Big 12 in a way it's really not in the Big 10.
Yep.
All right, so that's game 1. We're both picking Texas. Yep. Our next one is James Madison continues their quest to rub the NCAA's nose in it. Because if they run the table, man, the calls to get them a bowl game, because there might not be enough 6-6 teams, is going to reach a crescendo. They're going on the road to Georgia State, and they're only minor favorites. I want to say it's like a 3-point line, maybe a 5-point line.
5.5.
5.5. 5.5 line. They're at 2:30 on ESPN2. I don't want to talk a bunch about this one because I haven't really watched much JMU beyond highlights. Like I don't want to talk out my ass on it. But I'm picking JMU because I think it's a great story, and I just think they're better than most of the competition on their schedule, if not all of them at this point. So it would shock me if they don't finish undefeated. So that's where I'm at on JMU. So I'm going JMU. Are you?
I'm picking JMU as well, just because they seem to be the hot team right now.
And now that they know, hey, we're not getting a postseason.
Right.
Floodgates open, baby. Let's go show them why that's stupid.
Right. So I think they've got nothing to lose at this point. So I'm picking JMU.
All right, another game I don't want to belabor because it's really not going to be that good of a game is a Wrigley game, which is such a dumb decision to put football in baseball stadiums, and I will die on that hill. Northwestern is hosting Iowa, and Iowa is going to have more fans.
What's the reason behind this playing at Wrigley Field?
It's Wrigley Field. It's a national icon of a stadium.
Okay.
But the last time, didn't they have to alternate possessions on who's going to what end zone?
Yep.
It doesn't fit. I think it'd be one thing if this was at Target Field, where it's a brand new stadium, great amenities, and you could play it in this huge ass outfield, right? Not Wrigley. Put it at Great American Field. It's not where the Sox play.
I think so.
That's where the Sox play. Yeah, I think that's where they play. Or am I crossing up the Tiger Stadium? Fuck. I can't remember.
Oh, guaranteed rate field is
guaranteed rate field. That's what it is. Yeah. So they are. You can put it there, and it'd be better. It's just Wrigley. You're only going because it's Wrigley. It's not because it's a good space for football. And that's dumb. Don't do that. It's going to be bad. It's going to be windy weather coming in off Lake Michigan, and it's just going to be a crappy November day. Why are we doing this at Wrigley? It's stupid. Iowa should win but Northwestern's probably going to beat them anyway. But I'm picking Iowa.
I'm going with Iowa as well, just because Northwestern's had a rough go of it this season with the whole Pat Fitzgerald saga.
I think they're looking better, though.
I think so too. I think Northwestern's always that weird team in that they could have very good seasons because of recruiting, but they're not. I mean, because of their academics, they're not a major destination, obviously.
True.
But right now, I think they're doing the best they can with what they have on the roster and on top of just the whole saga with the coaching staff. So, um, I know Iowa's what 5 point. I think they're currently 5 point favorites. I think Iowa wins, but I don't think they cover those 5 points. I think it's like a 3 point victory, like a field goal will win it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just not going to be a pretty game, and that's why it's on
No.
Peacock.
Now, what's the weather situation? Because it is Chicago.
Yeah, it's going to be. Let me go to AccuWeather.
Because I know most of the Midwest is warming up this weekend, so I don't know after a cold spell for a few days here.
Yeah, it should be mid-50s if I recall. What's the 10-day?
Okay, so not bad. I didn't know if it was going to be an icy mess or anything like that. So I know Michigan loves its ice.
Yeah, it's not gonna be that cold.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'll be just a slow, low-scoring game. Northwestern will have its moments, but
yeah,
like you said, if they somehow score 2 touchdowns and it becomes a 12-14 victory for Northwestern, I won't be shocked at all. No. But I just think Iowa's defense has enough horses to get them over the top.
I agree.
Yeah.
Iowa has Cooper DeJean. So Oklahoma, number 9, is going to Oklahoma State, another turnaround candidate for Coach of the Year from Mr. Mike Gundy.
Right.
Oklahoma, coming off that crushing loss to end their undefeated season against Kansas, goes to an in-state rival and the last time they're going to play for the foreseeable future. So do you think Oklahoma State has the juice in this game to take down their cross-state rival? Or do you think Oklahoma says, you know what, last week was a fluke, Kansas is a better team, and we're going to put the screws to Oklahoma State?
I think Oklahoma has the better team. I have watched quite a few OU Oklahoma State games over the years, and I will tell you, this one is it's primed early 2000s rivalry where OU was really, like, under the Bob Stoops era, was really good, and they just went out there and shit the bed against Oklahoma State. It really feels like that. And those early teams, there was a couple years where they had some really big names on the offensive side of the football, but there were also a couple years before that, the first, like 2001, 2002, 2003, where they really didn't have a lot of big names at Oklahoma State compared to what Oklahoma had at the time, and they still went out there and fought hard. I think this is going to be a close game. Let's see. OU is a 6-point favorite on the road. I'm still going to go with Oklahoma, honestly, man. Still going to go with Oklahoma. Yeah. I think that hangover isn't going to be as severe as we think it's going to be. I'd like, now, if Oklahoma State wins, I'm going to have a blast watching that, but I just think Oklahoma has enough horses on both sides of the football and they have the better quarterback.
Yep. You'll need to be my eyes and ears on football because I'm not going to be able to watch because I'm running Extra Life this year. It's my year 9 for it, which is, if anybody that watches this doesn't know, Extra Life is a charity fundraiser for the Children's Miracle Network, which is a network of children's hospitals across the country, and I think a couple in Canada too. But so like the University of Iowa Stand Family Children's Hospital, where they do the wave, that's the hospital. And so all the money raised for my charity stream, which is 12 hours, same username as my Twitter handle on Twitch. We raise money for that, trying to get $1,000. Got a wheel of pain. For every $100, we spin a hot sauce wheel, which is going to suck. Doing a bunch of wood burning giveaways. It's going to be a good time. But I'm not going to be able to watch football because of that.
See, I can catch this game because it's a 2:30 game, but I'm going to be joining you at 7 o'clock for Fortnite. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, with the Wheel of Misfortune.
The Wheel of Misfortune. Chloe's going to be playing with us. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a real fun day. So our next week's show is going to be more of us talking about Week 11 as opposed to a Week 12 recap because we're not going to be able to watch all the games.
Right.
Speaking of games, we have one more to do. which for me is a very fascinating one as an Iowa guy.
Sure.
Kansas, coming off that big win, goes to a sold-out crowd in Ames for a night game. 6 o'clock kickoff in Ames. Jack Trice is going to just be absolutely rocking. That place is ready to go because the feeling around this program, from the outside at least, has changed so much in a month. I mean, a month ago, or a little over a month ago, they were ready to turn on Matt Campbell because he lunged at a fan because the fan was being a trolling dick. I'll completely defend Campbell there. That was uncalled for. And Campbell let his emotions get the better of him without really crossing the line. It just was a bad look. And then after that bad look and losing to Oklahoma, they decided, you know what? Tired of losing. Let's turn this into a basic, what Wisconsin's trying to do, and let's just throw the fucking ball all the time. Not air raid, all the way in concept, but they're very much more, hey, open the playbook. Let's just do what we can. And it's been working. The development's coming along, the blocking's better, the throwing's better, the receivers are stepping up. Becht has actually shown, hey, I'm a D1 quarterback. In a way I can't believe Iowa can't recruit. It's maddening to me.
Hey, I like Rocco Becht.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I think in the Iowa game he was very raw.
He's figured things out each and every week. And
yeah,
I think
he's gotten better.
That OU stomping a few weeks ago was a learning experience for him.
And he didn't even play that bad.
No, he just didn't complete enough.
They got outgunned.
Yeah, they got outgunned. Yeah.
And he was just pressing too much. And I think he's grown so much, and it's clear that, hey, you can actually develop quarterbacks in college. It's crazy Iowa didn't get that memo. But I like watching this Iowa State team. I think they're going to beat Kansas. I think Kansas is a bit of a letdown coming off the OU game. That's not unheard of, coming off huge home wins. Then you got to go on the road the next week, right? That's happened to Iowa. Penn State versus Purdue. Purdue comes in after that huge win over Penn State and eats our lunch money. Right? That wouldn't shock me at all. And that's what I'm actually banking on. Because Iowa State's an ascending team. They feel like they're really figuring stuff out. And these are both great coaches. Leipold and Campbell, both really showing why they're so good. Even in a down year, you can't count out Matt Campbell. I'm leaning Iowa State here. Home favorites. I believe it's a 2.5-point line right now. So basically a toss-up game. I'm leaning Iowa State. How about you?
I'm going with Iowa State as well, man. I think we're going to line up here, so we're not going to lose. I'm not going to lose any ground this week to you, particularly. Now, someone else, I don't know. I really like Rocco Becht. I really do, just because I think we talked about this when the season started. With the whole scandal, Iowa State was a mess. There's a lot of pieces to pick up. It's going to be a rough year. And I think sitting here at 5-3, 4-1 in the conference, hey man, this is the best case scenario for Iowa State at this point in the season. It really is. They beat Kansas. They could wake up at 25 the next day.
Yeah, really. They could straight up get ranked.
Yep, with 3 losses, just because of the fact that they've been grinding it out. I mean,
5-1 in the Big 12, and depending on how losses in the rest of these games shake out, say Oklahoma State pulls it off the stunner,
right?
And, and all of a sudden, maybe only Texas wins, and maybe it's Texas, Iowa State, top of the Big 12. What?
And then that matchup in 2 weeks is going to be very interesting all of a sudden.
That's going to be awesome.
State, right?
That's going to be national,
just
game days coming to town for that.
I could see that happening.
That or Big Noon kickoff, one of the two.
No. If Iowa State beats Kansas on Saturday and they end up becoming ranked, I could see that I could see game day wanting to come to town because Iowa State's a compelling story given what all of the circumstances that have
if you'd have told me, hey, Iowa State's going to be 4-1 in conference after the betting scandal, they lose their starting running back, starting quarterback, guys were betting on their games, everybody was demoralized. Oh, hey, they're also 4-1 in conference in November. I wouldn't have believed you.
Right.
I think this is Matt Campbell's best coaching job, and he's a hell of a coach.
No arguments here, man. No arguments here.
So, Congrats, Cyclones. You got a good one. And I'm even as an outsider, I'm happy to see Iowa State, not crumble under the weight of what happened in the offseason and actually, get it together. So that's been really cool to see. And I hope they win. I hope it happens just for the national storylines of these really compelling November games for them against good teams. I think that's
Yep.
fun to watch. So I hope they pull it off.
The 3 of the next 4 weeks are going to be they could be very good for Iowa State. I mean, you have Kansas, BYU, Texas, and then they finish off against Kansas State. I mean,
Yeah,
they could.
that could decide the conference for who
That's
gets
crazy,
to play in Jerry World.
right?
That's awesome.
Especially if Oklahoma State wins this weekend. Yeah, Iowa State
Yeah,
and Kansas
like
State have to be like, oh shit, like this is real. Like we could be facing Texas and Dallas. Like this is it. You know.
yeah, or let's say Kansas
Oh,
State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State all win. All of a sudden, Texas and OU are on the outside looking in to the
oh
conference
man,
game.
the Big 12 would
Like
absolutely
the
go crazy.
chaos gods demand it. Oh, I can't wait for if that happens. Oh, I can't wait for all the stuff that's gonna come out of that. That'd be amazing. I know it would suck for you. You're a Texas fan, but oh man,
No,
the
if
storylines would be so good.
honestly, man, if that were to happen, that's Texas would
That
deserve.
that's just
that,
hey
that
that's 2007 right there.
right.
That's what that would
Right.
be. That year
Yes.
was bonkers. All right, well that's it for our games. But leaderboard wise, where we're at on our pick'em. Fusion and I, very tight race. Fusion's got 31. I've got 30. We both had 5-0 weeks last week. We cleaned up.
Yep.
And so did Ty. Congratulations, Ty. You had 5-0 week. Your second undefeated week this season. She started late on this pick'em group and is close enough to be within striking distance at season's end to win the wood burning for free by yours truly. So I'm at 30, Gamma's at 27, Eddie's at 26, Shadow's at 23, and Les is at 20. Another 5-0 week, 4-1 week from her and some struggles from everybody else. All of a sudden, we got a tight finish to end this season going into the tail end of the regular season. It's going to be very fun as the commissioner of this pool to watch how that turns out. That's going to be very fun.
Yeah, I bet.
All right, so any other stories we want to talk about? We've been going for about 52 minutes, give or take.
I just want to say, like, obviously, if we both have our cards matching up for this week, next week will be a very interesting week, especially if you pick some, because there's a hell of a slate next week. I'm just like giving you a heads up. There is an absolute murder's row of games next weekend of ranked teams, so this is going to be fun.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be a real fun finish. I'm excited for the conclusion of the regular season and, of course, to see what happens with Michigan, right? And then come off season, what does Iowa do? It's going to be nuts. I can't wait for it.
You guys know, I just want to say, if you're listening before Saturday, please join Warburg for his stream. I'll be playing from 7 to 10 on Fortnite with you, and I know a lot of folks will be jumping in with you all day Saturday, but please go and donate. It's for the Children's Miracle Network. It's a great thing. Unfortunately, with my personal schedule, I really couldn't do my own campaign this year, but I will jump in when I can this weekend to play games with you, man. But it's always fun to do because raising that money is it's so cool. It's a cool experience. I've been doing it for 10 years now, and it's just I can't speak anything but like great stories I've had from over the years. Yeah.
Yep. It is a lot of fun. So hopefully some people follow me there. It's the same. It's at Twitch, on Twitch. Same username as what's above me right now on the screen. It's at Mr. Wartburg, M.R. Wartburg, like the college, who I believe are still undefeated in D3. I think.
Oh, I did not know that.
I got to double check the rankings. I don't super follow Wartburg Athletics as much as I should for having the Mr. Wartburg name. But Wartburg's a really good D3 football school and has been for a long time. Certainly were when I was there. So, all right, we're going to get out of here. We'll be back for week 11 to talk about our week 11 games. Probably a shorter one next week because unless something crazy happens with Michigan, we finally won't have to talk about that.
Right.
And then we'll see, because we got so many great games coming up with, rivalry weeks coming up. You got some great conference finishes down the stretch. There's a lot of really fun storylines going into week 11. So stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter. We're at 2backset on Twitter. And yes, I'm going to say Twitter, as well as our individual channels, because we really only use the pod one for promoting individual episodes. I don't do much social media gaming. I have a 9 to 5. I'm busy, right? Yeah. So follow us there, like the show, hit the subscribe, make sure you join, whatever feed you have to stay up to date on the show. I really appreciate it when people do so. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Later.